Welcome back to Meshmen Studio. So we're gonna take a look at the Mari 4 user interface and what's new. So let's dive into it now. So before diving into Mari 4, let's take a look at how the old Mari looked like. So this is what it was. We have the tabs over here, and yeah, it's kind of, we have our tools over here and some stuff up here, and that's kind of how Mari 3 looked like. So let's take a look at 4 now. So this is Mari 4, and I'm gonna take this in sections. So let's start with the left sidebar. So let's take a look here in the left sidebar. As we can see here, we have sections, or kind of like pop out groupings. So we have this select and marquee select in its own group here. We have the paint related stuff, to paint, blur, eraser, and vector paint. We have the paint through, gradient, and clone stamp. And then we have deformation, the deformation tools here. So warp, slurp, pinup, and toe brush. And then we have the transformation related stuff, and also the vector inspector and zoom paint buffer, transform paint buffer tools. And then it's the color picker and the color swatches underneath here. Over here we have ways to select object, patch, or phase mode. So those were related up here. So some of the stuff that was in the top bar has been moved down here, and the tools has been collapsed together in groupings. So underneath here we have the current channel, current layer and below, and all of those. We have the flat shaded, this is the lighting related stuff. So let's take a shader here, current shader, and go to flat, for example. So this is something you usually use the shortcuts, the F1, 2, and 3 keys, etc. And then we have the mirror paint. So if you take this, the mirror on x-axis, we get the red line. So if I paint something, it's gonna mirror the paint from one side to the other. And then we have the clear paint buffer and the reset paint buffer transform. So that's the left sidebar. And the user interface here in the top bar. Let's take a look. So we have the menus here as usual. I'm not gonna go through really specific the menus because that's been covered in previous tutorials about Mari. You will access some of these features in a lot of places in Mari, so it's not something I really use that often. However, the top interface here has been slimmed down. Before it was, I think, 2 or 3 rows of information, and some of the stuff actually lives now down here in these sections here. And the interface going through from left to right here, we have the usual open, close commands, and this is something I don't really use. I use shortcuts like close, save, and those type of things. A change here is the brush. You can see this current tool, but you also see the current brush, and that's kind of a new approach how you create. It's related to how you create brushes in the end. So there's a new concept about if you go here, for example, and take a brush with a icon on it. You will also see the icon up here once it's changed the brush. So there you go. And the icon is there. And if you would change this brush and customize it, you can save it by dragging it into a shelf. And that's a new procedure how to create brushes. Let's take something else. The mode here, the painting mode, that's how the paint is blended. Not something I use that often because I blend it on a layer or a node basis, but nevertheless, it's been changed. Before it was a really long list of blending modes, and now they have been like tucked together and grouped according to what they do. So if it's a darkening effect, it's under the darkening and lighten, contrast, operations, and like inversion, burnt and dodge, and those type of effects. They are now grouped together, so the list is less. Some might think this gonna be good and some bad. I would like to see a few frequently used ones, maybe on the top there or something. And then we have the brush specific radius opacity, and that's also something you usually control with shortcuts, so I don't really dial the radius going up here or the opacity. Then we have the wireframe. That's also something you shift W, for example, the shortcut. So but it's there. If I go to UV view, we have the drawing of the UV islands there, on and off. And let's go to perspective, and as we see now, I have two perspective cameras, so you can change the cameras here to an orthographic or a UV. So yeah, that's the way. So that's kind of a quick rundown on the top tab here and what's been changed, moved, and what is different to Mario 3. So here, the right sidebar, it's kind of similar to the old Mario 3, but not really in a sense. So we can see some of this. It's kind of grouped together in the way that it was in Mario 3. And then we have these, and that's the tabs that you could access by right-clicking up here. They have been also exposed here. So I guess what people will do, at least I will do, I will just hide this off the bat immediately, everything here, and go with this workflow instead. So if I now hit the channels, I want to access channels, I can do it, and then I go away here, go off the actual area, it's gonna hide. So this is the new kind of clean interface we can have, and we have this better pin or float palettes, so that's something we can do. And I default it's float, it's not staying. Once you leave the palette, it's gonna go away. Let's take this and pin it, and now it's gonna stay there. So yeah, that's, if you do something on a layer basis, you might want to pin it, but if something that you want to just access briefly, then I would probably go to an unpinned mode, because you can maybe, okay, I want to access, for example, painting, do something, and then start to paint, and then just goes away. So that's kind of a neat and clean way to have your user interface decluttered. We have the tabs here, so we have channels, colors. So the color window has been redone. It's an improvement. History view, I don't really mess with. Image manager, this is where we'll find all your images. The layer tab, the light tab, so yeah, it's familiar. The model renderer, the node graph that pops up here. And also we have the ability to go full screen now. For example, if we work in node graph a lot, and I guess most people will have a second monitor for this. If you don't, you can use this mode here, and when you if you're messing with nodes here and you wanna start to paint or something, you can just hit the tab and you will go full screen. You can paint and do your stuff, go back, do edits in the node graph or the node properties. So yeah, if you're on a single monitor, this is probably where you will spend time in the node graph. Some tabs have been moved together. I guess the shelf was also doubling as a some kind of when you're creating paintbrushes. You had the option to do it there, but now if you want to edit a brush, for example, you do it in tool properties. So tool properties has been unified, kind of. So if you have a brush, let's take a brush, if you go into tool properties, this is where you now edit the brush. So the tool properties has been kind of if I have a paint through tool or something, settings for that's gonna be in the node in the properties there as well. Tool properties, if you wanna do stuff to the like the preview alpha. So this was similar, but now if I switch this over to a brush, the brush settings gonna be tool properties. The shelf, if you wanna save a brush, if you do an edit onto a brush, for example, let's say that you do, this is what you wanna save, you can take your shelf, let's pin it usually, and personal, you can drag a brush into your shelf and it's gonna be stored there. That's a way to store brushes. You drag them from this icon down to the shelf, and the node, the tool properties has been remade into where you edit your brushes. And yeah, so let's go back here. Painting, this has been unified as well, so it's some of the settings from projection and masking has been all put together to one tab. Source grade is a big improvement, I think. It has better grading possibilities if you want to grade your source images before you paint with it. Paint buffer, this is where you're gonna reset your paint buffer and do stuff like that. And you also have the masking presets in one place. So yeah, it was usually at least 2 or 3 different tabs before, so that's nice that has been moved together. Patch operations, if you wanna select patches on this level, or store patch selection, it's there. Player controls, it was down there before. Projectors, Python, if you are Python savvy, and here you can make special selection groups. And the shaders, if you want to edit your shaders or create new ones, it's here. Shelf is where you have all your preset brushes, and if you create your own personal ones. Snapshots, don't really use it. And texture sets, this is a new addition, and this is a way to load texture sets. And I have the Megascan tab here. This is what's been added. So we have ways to add surfaces in my case and atlases. So if you have a Megascan library, you point it to this, they set the path to where it is, and you're gonna get icons from the JSON files. I'm gonna do a separate Megascan tutorial, I'll cover that later. And the tool properties, like we already took a look at. So yeah, that's the right shelf here. And yeah, we have this as well. We can minimize this, pin and unpin, and also you can pin on a tab basis. For example, let's take objects as well. Maybe you want to pin it over there. So yeah, it's gonna stay pinned, unpin it, and goes back. So that's a way to work with your interface. So when you have learned all of these, what the icons are, you maybe want to even do like that, so it's even more real estate. Okay, so yeah, that's the right sidebar. And now a very anticipated and very requested upgrade for Mari. And it's kind of trivial, but yeah, the brightness lookup here, if I make one, and usually before we have this very minimal curve editor, and now we have the option to really extend it and make it a big one. For example, if you need precise control, if you have the ability to do just that, we can add pins. And yeah, we can have presets here, save, invert. Yeah, it's very good. I mean, there's room for improvements. I would like be able to drag like a rectangle around it, but yeah, at least we have more precision now, because in the old Mari it was hopeless. It didn't work at all. And yeah, so let's take a node as well here. Let's take a brightness hookup or any other node that has a curve. We have this option, and if you want to reset, so you can press on this and nothing happens. It must be this button to get it open, and you can even dock it, so you can have it docked like that if you want to reset the bar. Yeah, it's a great addition and it gives more precision. The new color interface, or the color chooser picker or whatever you want to call it. So if I hit the swatch there, we get this selection color, and it's, I guess it's been unified. So for example, we have a tab before that was called Pixel Analyzer, and that was analyzing color. So it's been incorporated into this workflow here, and we have also a way to blend and use an image in like a color tab. So now everything is unified into one place, and we have better ways to select color here, I think, in general. So yeah, this is a good addition. We have different way to choose what we want to see here. Use saturation value, RGB, etc. And also, if we take an object here, for example, there's a new way to apply colors so we can drag and drop. So for example, if I go here onto object mode, for example, and let's make a node here, a paint just in the node graph, visualize it. I can drag a color from here. So oops, I can just drag it and let it go, and it's gonna fill it. It's gonna do it now on the mode you have here. So in my case I have objects, but let's select a few patches here, and let's drag this black onto there. So this is gonna be a nice way to create mask, like create masks in a quick way. So let's say I wanna make a mask that's black tires. This one, gonna be a white. So now we have a black and white mask here. If I isolate this, and it also works with with faces. So if I want to, let's say, let's take these faces here on top, and I want to fill it with a color. Let's drag the white onto. It has to bake it, so it's gonna be a slight delay there before it's baked onto the faces. And also the pop-up color chooser looks like this now. It's been updated as well, and you can also actually drag from the pop-up, so you don't have to go here. So if you want to drag out a okay, I have to have a selection before I can drag. If I want to take this green color here, I can drag it up there. Okay, so now the bottom area. So it's mostly actually just color related. So we have the LUT here, on and off, for color management. So this is probably something that's going to be set up by a studio, or the default one if you are more like a smaller studio that's going to use the custom ACES LUT or the Nuke default. So this is only if you go to project settings up here in the settings. This is something you set up when you create the project, or if you have a studio, this is probably set up when you launch your Mari session. Anyway, let's go down here. So the input color space, and you have this turn on and off. We have you can select LUT here, and clear current LUT. So this is something you will probably not really mess with or not allowed to mess with if you're in a studio. We have the viewer transform, and as we are now here on a regular setup that's not really in a big pipeline, I just only have the viewer transform sRGB. But if I would be in a like a film pipeline, I will probably have the show LUT. Also, you can turn off color management. Usually here it's set. You have the viewer transform none, and that's actually a really good transform to have, because I have color management on and have viewer transform off. I can still tweak my gain and gamma, and that's something I use when I color QC my my mask, for example. So this is something that's gonna be able to be set up in your color config file. So I will probably go in and edit my color config file, so I at least have a Rec 709 and a none in my nuke default. So I have to check that out. I haven't really done it myself that often, to be honest. We can see individual channels in luminance, like grayscale, or luminance, RGB, and this is the gamma or gain slider if you wanna see how this looks with more intensity or less. And over here I didn't forget about those. So this one is reset navigation settings to default. I haven't really used that before. Panning on all axes. So this is, you can lock ways. If you go to pan X, this is you're only gonna be able to pan left to right here, not up and down. So this is the way if you want to project something totally parallel to something, for example, or just up and down. Now I can't go from side there. This one is zoom disabled or not. So usually this is something you don't really mess with, except when you need it. If you want to lock a specific axis, then this is the place where you will look into that. So now I can only go up and down or left to right there, and snapping. So you can have it. It's gonna be like grid snapping, but in transformation space, kind of. Yeah, so that's the basic of the bottom bar there. And actually we have a few small things, and that's still, this is still the good old defaults. So we have some small icons here telling us if color management is active. This one is, it's only front of the object, so if you hit this one, it's gonna project through, and this can be a pain because this little icon here can really save your butt if it was more visible somewhere else. Because if you start to paint now, you're gonna project through the object, and sometimes that's something you don't really want to do. So yeah, and we have some icons here for like if you have masking enabled or not. Yeah, and HDR, if you hit this once again, you're gonna go LDR. So what this does, it's gonna go, if I go to painting, and let's actually pin it and go to my paint buffer. If I hit the HDR, it's gonna clamp or unclamp the paint buffer. That's what that do. So yeah, that's the bottom bar. That's all folks for today, and as usual, if you like this, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. And yeah, why not like it as well, so you get some indication, and you feed a Pomeranian if you do that. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, and see you the next time.